Yo, what's up, guys? You got your boy Nandre here. Welcome to another video. So for this video, well, first up, before I begin this video, shoutouts to Shurukkah. So you probably don't know this person, that's fine. But Shurukkah is actually a person who constantly watches actually most if not all of my videos. Now they don't always leave a comment, but sometimes they do. And a while back, they asked me to talk about Stormhaven. So it kind of took me a while, but I'm here. This is the video where we talk about Stormhaven. So there's a lot of different ways to play Stormhaven. Now, you might not think so just because, like, oh, well, I'm just going to play a bunch of birds and while walking around the face, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to go face in Stormhaven. So we're just going to talk about a few of those different ways. So I just went ahead and quickly made three or so deck lists for it. So just quickly talk about it. So these are all going to be like the more traditional versions of Stormhaven. I do have like one like fourth, like I guess sort of like controversial deck, which I can go ahead and talk about at the end, but let's go ahead and get right on into it. Alright, so this is the first one. Alright, so for the most part, as you may know, Stormhaven in their 2 and 3 drops, they've been using a lot more of Mind You as well as White Tiger in order to try to deal with D-Ship better. Now, D-Ship is still in the meta. Like, I know a lot of people think that, oh, well, like, D-Ship got, like, gutted or whatever, and D-Ship's, like, not in the game. But no, D-Ship's still in the game, just because, like, combo decks are always, like, unless you nerf, like, multiple cards of the same combo deck or whatever, you'll probably still see said combo deck in the game. Anyway, so the Mind You and the White Tiger are really, really good, just because like they're very, very difficult for your opponent to deal with it, because your opponent has to be honest when dealing with them. They have to make the actual trade. They can't just be like, oh, let me go ahead and like zombie party, let me go ahead and blazing breath, let me go ahead and zombie. No, you actually have to trade into them. So a lot of times, what I find that happens is that like if you can't trade into it because you say you did not keep any removal or whatever, that these units tend to get at least 2 to maybe say upwards of 4 to 6 damage. And that's a lot, like, just because that's about, that's about like close to one third of your opponent's HP just down the drain. That's very, very cool. Another thing is Pinion Prayer. So Pinion Prayer is actually one of the more like debated card slots in this deck. Like for me personally, I don't think you want 3. Like I think 2 is just fine. Hell, like if anything, I actually probably wouldn't play any. But it's very, very nice just because it's something that you can do on 1, and when an overall aggressive tempo deck can do something on 1, that deck usually tends to be pretty powerful. So the Pinion Prayer is kind of cool just because like you play it on 1, you get your Holy Falcon on 3. The Holy Falcon on 3 can be used to do other things. It can be used to like trade up and buy you space to play your Amulet on 3, or it can just be used to go face in a control matchup. Globe of the Stairways. So Globe of the Stairways is actually one of the bigger cards, I believe, for why Stormhaven is so good. Is because like in the past you used to play Sacred Plea, but with Sacred Plea you can draw anything. You can draw useless like removal, or you can draw like useless like things that you can't actually cast yet. Like for example, like your 8 drops or like your 6 drops or whatever. And that always feels very, very bad. However, with Globe of the Stairways, you know that you're always going to get an action card. Now, the only card that you can't like immediately cast after playing Globe on like 1 is Teatime and Birdsong. But Birdsong you can play on 3, so there's not like that big of a gap from turn 1 to turn 3. But there is, however, a gap between turn 1 to turn 5. But it's very, very cool. Additionally, it'll draw you a card afterwards, so it'll get you an action card, and it'll draw you something after the fact when the amulet like runs out, which is very, very cool to me because it's essentially a 1 mana draw 2, but you get guaranteed action for like next turn, or sometimes the same turn depending on like what turn you cast it, and that's cool to me. 2, Hallowed Dogma. So I don't think you play 3 of Hallowed Dogma, just because Hallowed Dogma is in fact actually a brick, because like despite it's like Haven or whatever, you use a lot of amulets, like you won't always have like that many amulets in play, or rather you shouldn't have that many amulets in play. So for the most part, you only want to trigger this when it's like late game, when you like don't have you can't afford to just wait the whole like 2 turns or 3 turns or whatever to pop that amulet. It's also nice because it cycles itself, and that's pretty good. through scripture. This is obvious. Like eventually, you want to be able to have your guys go face for as long as possible, and you want to use scripture to remove any wards or any other obstacles that would bar your path. 3 Beast Claw Aria. So Beast Claw Aria is one of the it's one of the more staple reasons for why you would play Stormhaven, because like the tempo swing of Aria is basically just, pay 2 mana on turn 5, you'll get 6/5 in stats before Evo, and then after Evo it'll be 8/7 in stats, and it's usually very, very difficult for your opponent to deal with, especially because sometimes if you have the dogma, you can go ahead and set it off early. Like for example, if you're going first and you set it off early and you're versus like a control deck, a lot of times people can't actually deal with the tiger. If you can't deal with the tiger, you're gonna get smashed for 4. That's not fun. And it just puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, just because like there are a lot of crazy things they can do with the tempo swing of the Beast Claw Aria. Like it's why Stormhaven is actually more of a tempo deck than is, well, it's a mix of a tempo deck and a storm deck more so than it's like an actual like aggro deck. 2 Angel of the Word. So Angel of the Word is always kind of nice because like it can be used to clear off units that try to value trade into you that also are at like 1 HP. It can also be used to clear up a lot of 2/1s that are in the metagame right now, like for example Baphomet, Soul Splasher, Blood Wolf, etc. Very, very useful card. It also helps clean up things, and that's always where you want to be at. White Tiger, again, I already mentioned this, but in this case, White Tiger is good for 2 reasons. 1, he's good because he's a ward. He's also a ward that your opponent can't actually remove, unless of course they make trades into it, and because he's a 3/2 as opposed to 2/3, he will in fact kill anything that trades into him unless that unit is evolved, and that's very, very good, just because just being able to go 1 for 1. Now it's not as good if you're going second, but he'll bust up a board and usually make it so you take a little bit less damage right before you play out like your cudgel or something like that. 2 Priests of the Cudgel. So this card again is pretty staple. Now you don't play 3 of this because generally when you play Stormhaven, when you play Haven in general, but in particular Stormhaven, you usually want to evolve a lot of your birds. You really don't want to be evolving a cudgel unless you don't have a choice. Like for example, if you're going second, you will not have a choice, and that's why you play 2 cudgel. It's very, very good for just busting the boards, trying to get you back some tempos. This way you can start playing down some of your amulets if you weren't able to do those yet. It's also very, very nice on your turn 5 if you have the aria, and of course later in the game if you have your doggo. Birdsong. So Birdsong is yet again one of the quintessential amulets that you would play in the first place. The reason why you play it is just because the Regal Falcon is it's a 3/4 storm that evolves into a 5/6. 5/6 is actually is at that stat line where if it's at full HP, which it usually will be because it what are trades, that becomes very, very difficult for your opponent to deal with, especially just because there's so many things they can do on 5, because if you play out aria on 2 and the Birdsong on 3, you'll have both this as well as the aria both pop on 5. If you throw that in with the cudgel, that's just so many stats all at once. It usually just breaks your opponent's back. It's just really, really difficult to deal with. 2 Birdkeeping Disciple. So Birdkeeping Disciple is a bit of a newer inclusion. Now, the reason why Birdkeeping Disciple is good is because your turn 4 as Haven is usually pretty bad actually. The only thing you have was say a tempo cudgel, which you would only do if you had a second cudgel in your hand and you wanted to force your opponent to make trades into that. But that's usually not where you want to be at. Whereas instead now you can play a Birdkeeping Disciple. Birdkeeping Disciple helps push your agenda because it puts a Pinion Prayer into play for you. That's very, very nice. The reason why you don't play it as a 3-of though is because when you play Stormhaven, you'll find that a lot of times you have board slots that kind of clog, because Birdkeeping Disciple puts 2 slots into play. It'll use up the slot for the creature and then the slot for the prayer. Marcher's Teatime, again 2 slots into play, and then in the case of Marcher's Teatime, the countdown on the Teatime amulet, it's so long that it's actually gonna stay in play as a permanent -1 to your overall board spaces. So as a result, this is why you play two Disciple. Not because it's not a good card, but because you really don't want to clog up your board slots. You want to be able to play your amulets, launch your amulets out your opponent's space, and just keep going. You don't want to get bogged down. 2 Dance of Death. So I feel like, so I honestly feel like Dance of Death is actually pretty core in most aggressive decks. However, I know a lot of people don't play it, and I honestly feel like that's a mistake. Like in the past, like if your opponent plays out Sybil or whatever, and they just like try to play a tempo sigil, a tempo Sybil, and in the hopes that you'll like deal with it or whatever, you Dance of Death it. If you Dance of Death that Sybil and they didn't make a trade with it, you win that game. You straight just win that game, just because like they fall so far behind for that like greedy play. But yeah, like I definitely like Dance of Death just because like it answers a lot of the problem cards that are like in the metagame. The only I guess like 2 that doesn't like really answer that are like, also kind of big are it won't answer Beauty and the Beast, but like that's just I believe it's like a bad matchup for you anyway, and it won't answer. There was another one. Oh, and it won't properly answer. It won't usually properly answer the Caraboos unless, of course, you have unless of course you have like multiple creatures in play anyway. In which case, you're gonna win that game. Too much Teatime again. I already mentioned this, but like you play Teatime. You play 2 Teatime for 2 reasons. 1, because of the whole like board space thing I mentioned earlier. 2, because you only have on average 2.5 evolves, but when we round down to 2, because you can't have half an evolve. So in reality, you only have 2 evolves each game, and as a result, like you currently have 4 things you want to evolve. Naturally, only 2 of those things will be evolved, and you want to make it so that like you don't play these like extra useless stuff for no reason. Like you have to play Cudgel and you have to play Teatime because they're both very, very powerful. But you should not play more than like 4 combined of the 2 of these cards together. Just because like in the event where like it's like say turn like 7 or whatever, and you have to like play out one of these, you're gonna feel very, very bad because you can't evolve it. But in the case of Teatime is actually like ridiculous. Like I've said this for numerous like months or whatever, but like and it still holds true. It still holds true even now. But like a lot of times back during Neutral Blood, I would honestly just straight up just keep hands of Teatime plus Garuda, because Teatime plus Garuda is just oh my god, it's so ridiculous. All right, so a Teatime is worth 4/5 of stats. Okay, right? So that's 4/5. In reality, Teatime is actually Marchers Teatime is actually 8/10 of stats. It's just that 4/5 of the stats are delayed. Anyway, so you get your 4/5. Your 4/5 becomes a 5/6. Your 5/6 then kills 2 things on the board. That's cool. Your opponent might not trade into the Teatime, but if they do, that's fine. That's fine by you. You don't care. You effectively just gain 4 HP. Then next turn, if your opponent does trade, cool. If your opponent doesn't trade, well, oh my god, that your opponent is about to get wrecked. Because then you just go ahead and do Garuda, and then the Garuda will go ahead and hit your opponent for 3 automatically because of the Garuda fanfare. It will then also reduce the countdown of your Teatime to 0, so you'll then get your second Teatime automatically. If you have another Evo, you can then go ahead and just Evo, and you do the same thing all over again. So you effectively gain... Alright, so before Evo, it's 12-14 worth of stats. After Evo, it's 14-16 worth of stats, and you get to deal upwards of 9 face damage. Yeah, cool. It's a pretty ridiculous combo, and it's definitely one of the more, I guess, like checkmatey sort of things they can do as Stormhaven. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, you always feel good, just because like your opponent literally can't do anything about it. Like, because if you hit them in the face at all, you usually put them in range of the next 2 cards that we'll be talking about later. It's just such a strong tempo power play. It's just ridiculous. Garuda's pretty good. Garuda's like one of the is like the face of like Stormhaven as well. Just because like when he got like printed in DE, he just seemed like really, really good. I mean, like he still is pretty good. He's not as good as he used to be, but like he's still definitely pretty good, and he will steal some games from you. Just because Garuda kind of like it lets all of your amulets kind of, you know, go down to 0 most likely, and then just, you know, come out and do the things that they gotta do. Like it makes it so that playing out your Beast Call Aria on 5 isn't the worst, isn't like the end of the world, or playing out your Divine Birdsong on like 5, again, same thing, not the end of the world. Just because he'll go ahead and he'll reduce the countdown of it, so you'll get whatever creature it is. You also get to do 3 face damage. The three face damage is very, very important, because it basically means that Garuda is a is that Garuda is basically a really, really, really cost efficient creature because you get to factor in the fact that you get a they essentially get like one and one half of a hollow dogma, except you don't get to draw a card, and you also get a demonic strike. So if we assume that this is 3 mana and demonic strike is 4 mana, you essentially get like a 0 mana 4/4. Yeah, cool. Very, very cool card. Very, very strong card. Again, it will steal a lot of games. He's like, we've all been there where we're like, oh, okay, please don't have Garuda, please don't have Garuda, and then they have Garuda and they're just like sad. But it's definitely a very, very powerful card. Now, I do believe that for right now, they definitely play it as like a 3 of when possible. However, there are some versions of Stormhaven that do not run Garuda, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. But yeah, but definitely a card that they definitely consider each and every time you play Stormhaven. Dark Jeanne. So this one is a bit more controversial. For me personally, I don't really like Dark Jeanne that much. However, Dark Jeanne is kind of cool because she essentially is a more offensive Ancient Lion Spirit. Ancient Lion Spirit, if you don't know, he's another evolved unit. He's 5 mana for I believe 3/4. Yeah, like 5 mana, like 3/4 that evolves into like a 4/5. Or sorry, 5 mana 4/5 that evolves into a 4/4. He doesn't get any stats on Evo. That says deals 2 damage to your opponent's like board. However, in Dark Jeanne's case, she does 2 damage to everything. But if your creatures survive it, then they get +2/+0, and that's very, very strong. Because sometimes if you set off if you go like say turn 5, or sorry, if you have like a turn 6 popping aria, you can go ahead and you can evolve the bird that'll come out of that. The bird will get up to being a 4/3. You then go ahead and Dark Jeanne on the board. Dark Jeanne, you want to aim it in such a way so that says play Dark Jeanne like nukes your opponent's like entire board and they have like nothing left. So this way you will have a 6/1 storm bird, a 6/2 tiger, and then you'll have a 5/5 Dark Jeanne. That's usually GG in a lot of cases. It just provides an alternate way to win. However, you should not rely on the +2 buff that often. You should just mainly be focused on the 2 damage to everything. The +2 everything else is just, you know, slight possible icing on a cake that you might not have. The last card is Taurus the Great. So Taurus the Great is a big one. So in the past, sometimes you play Gilgamesh in Stormhaven. However, now you don't need to. Instead, you can just go ahead and play Taurus the Great. Taurus the Great is a little bit better for 2 reasons. 1, he can make trades if you need to. 2, he can actually live said trades if you actually need to make these trades. Now, I don't know how often the whole Taurus needing to make a trade thing comes up, but I do know that that in general, I would like to have the option to make a trade if I needed to, as opposed to not having the option altogether. But definitely Taurus the Great is very, very powerful, just because, like, well, he's the great. So this card is usually the last, like, it's usually gonna be like your 39th and 40th card of the deck. Now, not to say that the card is bad, but just because it is an 8-drop in an aggressive deck that usually tries to end the game by, say, turn 5, turn 6. And so sometimes it's a card that people like only play as a 1 of in order to like find space for something else in the earlier game. But definitely a card to consider. Alright, so this is more of a what I would expect to be like a general sort of thing for like Stormhaven. However, there are a lot of different like tech cards. There are a lot of different like tech cards that you can play, which we'll go ahead and we'll talk about in some of these other lists. Alright, so for this one's called Keen because like you're playing 2 copies of Keen Enchantment. So Keen Enchantment is a card that comes and goes out of the meta. It's never like big in the meta, but it's definitely something that comes and goes every now and then. So Keen Enchantment, the way it works is that like it's 2 mana, give +2/+0 to an ally follower. So let me go ahead and hit you with some math right here. So if we think about it, a demonic strike is 4 mana, right? It's 4 mana for 3 damage. Keen Enchantment, is 4 mana. It's 3 damage for 4 mana. So effectively, you gain I think it's like 0.75. 0.75 per 0.75 damage per mana. However, Keen Enchantment, it's 2 damage for 2 mana, so that's 1.0. Like, so effectively, Keen Enchantment actually is better for the mana cost than Demonic Strike. Additionally, it's also cheaper. Now, the Now, the reason why Demonic Strike is so expensive is because like it's a lot easier to cast it, but in the event where you can like play a key enchantment, because again you have a lot of like you have a lot of like storm birds and whatever, the key enchantment is overall better just because it's cheaper and you can do more things in the same turn with it. So as a result, every now and then we sometimes see people play like key enchantment or whatever. This list is pretty much, you know, this is relatively the same. The only change is that like you're playing 3 Snow Whites. Snow Whites also helps because it's a possible body for Keen. Because if you go turn 1, if you go first or whatever, you can go Snow White on 1. You can also go like Keen Enchantment on 3. Then you have a 3/2 Snow White that kills whatever trades into it, and then comes back again, and that can still do other annoying things. Now you won't obviously like do the Keen on 3. You'll usually, I believe you usually try to aim it for turn 4, just because again turn 4 is kind of a dead turn for you as Stormhaven. So ideally, what you would usually probably do on 4 is you probably go like say Keen something that lived the previous turn. Go ahead and drop like say an aria, or go ahead and drop like a doggo or something like that, and then you would go ahead and do that. Now, my list is a little bit odd because apparently I missed a beast claw. I missed by 3 copies of Beast Claw Aria. You definitely play 3 copies of Beast Claw Aria. Don't be like me and don't forget to play your 3 copies of Beast Claw Aria. Now what you'd probably cut for the Beast Claw Aria, you'd probably cut you'd probably cut maybe say 1 globe, 1 Snow White, and maybe say 1 Birdkeeping Disciple for this. You can also cut 1 Dogma instead if you want to, and that'll be fine, just because again, like Dogma is kind of a brick. But yeah, like it's definitely a one option of something that you can like do. Again, you meant like the Key Enchantment like is definitely, you know, kind of like a throwaway card. Like if you don't want to play it, you don't have to play it for obvious reasons, because like it is a bronze. I guarantee you, like most people don't even have. I only have these 2 copies just because like I never file anything, and I got these 2 animated. So yeah. The next one, Erd. Alright, so this time I have my Arias, but something that I've seen people do in the past, although I don't think you do it as much right now, but it's definitely still something that you can do, is you can play Erd. So the reason why you play Erd is because Erd, it resets all of your Storm Amulets, so they can go ahead and attack again. Now, Erd is a lot cheaper than say that Ariet. Ariet is a 7-drop, Erd is a 4-drop. Erd also has some like alternative flexibility options, and that she can like reset like Ancient Elves or reset like evolved units. Yeah. Now, ideally, what you want to be erding is you want to actually be erding the Divine Birdsong. The reason why you want to erd the Divine Birdsong is because like it's the lineup that like usually makes the most sense. Like for example, if you say Birdsong on say like 4 into erd on 6 for the aria. Into Erd on 6 for the Birdsong, that's up to 8 damage they can do. So it's 3 damage from the Regal Falcon, and then like 5 more if the Regal Falcon attacks again, and it's also evolved when it attacks again, because the Erd will in fact reset your attack timer. If you do Erd, you want to be sure to evolve it to evolve it on the 2nd swing, because the Erd will in fact reset your evolve if you evolve it first. Now, the reason why that's good is just because like a lot of times you can plan out for like, you can kind of, you know, like deal with like say 3 damage or whatever, or maybe even 5 damage, but can you deal with 8 damage in 1 turn? You usually kind of can't. It's a little bit much. And so a lot of times when that happens, your opponent just gets under like a lot of like mental pressure, because like it's a lot of damage to deal with, especially now that they also have Taurus the Great in the back. They just kind of, you know, there's like a looming threat that can just, you know, kind of come down on 8 and kind of kill you, because 8 damage is nearly half your HP bar just gone. And this is before we assume that any of the other things kind of like came into play and just, you know, dealt damage to your opponent and just like made their life like hell. So definitely a very nice burst combo that you have access to. But yeah, like, so these are the 3 like main like versions of Stormhaven that I tend to see. Well, the King version is like less like common, but definitely, you know, the KFC and the Erd list are the most common for what I tend to see. Stormhaven is always like a pretty good deck overall, just because like people don't like prepare for it, and you can just kind of get blown out by just getting, you know, mauled by birds. That's a thing that can happen to you. But yeah, If you enjoyed the video, go and leave a like, go and hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think about story in the current metagame. Do you like it? Do you have a particular list that you like to play? If so, you know, go ahead and show me. Like, I'm always trying to learn too. Again, another round of shoutouts to Shurukkah, just because they're the person who's like, oh, go ahead and make this video. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys